Hi, everyone. I am Rob Boyce. I am the VP of Marketing here at IT Solutions. And I would like to introduce you to the next in our series of introducing some subject matter experts around the organization and our organizational ecosystem. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about cybersecurity and beyond that, like really level setting what are some of the key elements of cybersecurity and what are the things maybe people don't know that are creating vulnerabilities within their companies. So I've invited Andrew Scott to today's conversation. And Andrew, I'll hand it over to you to give us a little intro as to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, Rob. Great to be here. Yeah, I am the field CISO here that's Chief Information Security Officer here at Todyl Security. So we are obviously part of your ecosystem. Very, glad to be here. And a lot of my role is really helping provide guidance to organizations of all types on how to build their cybersecurity programs, how to evolve them, how to do better risk, approach better risk management, even just thinking about opening up how to even perceive risk and cybersecurity needs for their business if they don't know where to start. So really glad we could have that conversation today.
So for our audience here, what is a vCISO?
Yeah, so it's a VCISO or field CISO is really someone who has been around the block enough to see kind of everything that works, but also what doesn't, to be honest, and sharing those insights and guidance of democratizing, I guess you could say, cybersecurity and kind of risk management knowledge to ensure that we can kind of level up as many organizations. Security posture, protect those businesses or missions or what have you, and really about the best way to do that. So that's a lot of my role is really providing, think of just kind of an executive advisor, to be honest, but really also helping organizations figure out where they need to start at, even if it's not executives, but what right tools to use or right processes to build, things like that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So is this something you went to school for, or did you just kind of get into this?
I didn't actually. I think like many of us in security or who have been practitioners in the past, I mean, we sort of fall into it. So I've been doing any manner of whether it's cybersecurity or threat intelligence or even doing, direct, government work for almost, 15 years now. Started out my career as an intelligence analyst, not even doing cyber. I was focused more on, counter narcotics. And I really just kind of, had an inflection point. I think it was kind of early 2010s where what is the future of conflict? And I saw that it was really digital, in cyberspace. And, so yeah, I did, kind of start to dabble in and apply the same techniques that, I was using as an intel analyst to understand why attackers or adversaries will do what they do and how they operate, and what patterns can we see. And so I really, joined, one of the big consulting providers, and that's, taken my career here through being, built security operations centers and programs and deployed tools for Fortune 500 and governments and so forth. Been an executive advisor and even ran my own federal MSSP for several years. So oversaw operations too. So all that's sort of built up to allowing me now to be in my role here of just sharing all those insights and what's worked and what hasn't, and bringing those best practices. So yeah, sort of stumbled into it, to be honest, but I'm glad I did.
That I get it. I didn't go to marketing school. I stumbled into this too, so totally understand.
Yep.
And for today, it sounds like we've got the right expert to include in this conversation, but we're going to try to keep it fairly high level for
Yep.
today's discussion, and then for future installments, we might dive into some other specific topics. But before we do that, tell us something about you outside of work. What can we find you doing on weekends or evenings?
Yep. Well, I'm a Colorado native, born and bred. There's very few of us left, so I'm here in Denver at Total's HQ. But what that means is I grew up sort of outdoors, and so I think that's really where most people will find me. Is just enjoying the Colorado landscape, where it's the mountains, hiking, running, biking, skiing, etc. Also just, I've, got a young family, so just really enjoyed, spending time with them, also traveling the world, been to over 60 countries plus at this point. So really just enjoy learning about new countries, new cultures, new things, and different experiences. So if I'm not, here or supporting various things, you'll probably find me somewhere on the map out there in the world. So
Oh, very cool. 60 countries is pretty impressive. I'm still just trying to explore our country here in the US, but
be as well. Be as well.
awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. So what you talk to a lot of people and you hear about a lot of questions and concerns. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions that you hear in the field about the real threats of cyber attacks?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's two perspectives I think that are often missed. One, I think it's sort of seen as this, hackers in hoodies, very, out there in the ether, mysterious thing that happens, and it's very scary. It can be. But I think there's a perspective that it's somehow incredibly complex. And believe it or not, you know, uh, it actually can be quite easy as, I'm just going to steal username and password, log in, and steal data, just like we do to enter Facebook or LinkedIn or our bank accounts or things like that, right? So I think, the complexity and fear out of cybersecurity kind of creates people to back away of something they don't understand, instead of embracing and understanding really what is this and what do I need to do. So that's, I think, number one. The other really kind of key factor, I think, is why would they care about me? Right? I hear this from even my
Yeah.
family members who are, I don't care if my, information's out there on, the dark web or stolen. I have nothing to hide. But, I think there's that concept of, I'm too small to be targeted. They don't care about me. I'm not a big Fortune 100 or government. So why would I matter? And I think that's the exact point. You are not the Fortune 100 or the government, and so oftentimes organizations, are unfortunately a softer target, right? Because they just don't have the necessary security posture capabilities to properly defend themselves. And cybersecurity is all about really making life harder for attackers to attack you. The idea of, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to run your friend. Your friend's the business down the street, or the organization down the street. And so really just making it more challenging so that that adversary is going to move on. That's what it's all about. But I think that's where, yeah, I'm too small to be targeted. And it sort of is this mysterious, scary thing that we choose not to really dive into to learn and be honest with ourselves about what our readiness or what an impact of an attack or breach would be. Those, I think, are the two areas I'd really encourage anyone to really start coming to terms with and answering for yourselves.
Yeah, I love the bear analogy. Whenever I go camping with my buddies, I always make sure to bring a really slow person for that very reason. Um, cool. So give me an example of where, there's a common type of attack out there that's fairly easily preventable as long as people just knew some, basic security measures that they could be applying that could really prevent, a problem or a breach with, data or damage to brand or compliance.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk that, really identity is the new perimeter, is what it said. And we're not going to get too deep into that right now, but with that, the identity, what we really mean is that user persona, right? Your email, your password, your login to your company. And so there's ways of targeting the users, right? Humans are the weakest link, kind of always seen as that. And so phishing, right? Clicking suspicious emails or malicious links, even ones you maybe get on your phone. These are common, and getting more and more advanced, right? We see phishing emails all the time. I think there was a statistic that like one in every 323 emails, phishing emails is a phishing email sent to a small and medium-sized business globally. I mean, it's unbelievable. But really, phishing links of just, hey, why is someone asking me to wire money all of a sudden? Is that real? Like, if it seems to be good to be true that I've won $5 million, right, from a Nigerian prince who's asking me to wire money, probably not real, right? So I think there's just a certain amount of just the sanity check, right? Of just, is this normal? Is this urgency really required? And to not click the link, right? Because the link could either install, advanced malware or certain things like either your system will steal data or drop other malware. Maybe it's about stealing your credentials too, right? Or redirects you to a page where you're going to get fooled into entering in your email and password. And so I think phishing, right, or just being really suspicious, unfortunately, it's gotten to this point, but being really suspicious about emails you get, things you didn't expect, also, right, a level of urgency that it seems very anomalous, right? All of a sudden, if I don't do this, I'm going to get locked out or I'm going to lose money or, something like that. And that's because it's designed to get you to interact there. But taking that pause and also just pick up the phone. Nothing beats calling a person saying, "Did you send this email?" People will thank you twice. Your organization will thank you twice, big time. If you just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I just got this. Is that really you?" No one's going to be mad about that. But if money is wired out the door, there is compromise. That's unfortunately where people get upset, for better or for worse, right? So I think that's number one, is really just being aware of keeping your guard up. It's like if you're walking in a dangerous neighborhood or in the dark alley sometimes, like, don't go down there, or keep your wits about you. Same thing applies, I think. The other one is just, I mentioned usernames and passwords, right? I'm just big on the identity and really protecting against that, having orgs really understand this now. But multi-factor authentication, so far often it's not adopted or applied across the board. And while it can be kind of a pain to have to enter a 6-digit code or press a little prompt button or something like that on your phone, it's that extra level that is going to actually mitigate a lot of risk. It's creating that barrier, making it harder to get in. The adversary might not have that MFA token to be able to authenticate. If you don't have it, they can just log right in. But it's about making it more challenging. I so you think those two things can really stop a lot of attacks before they even start. But where we see a majority of attacks just beginning and continuing to be successful, because I think that's the fundamentals, I think, are almost being skipped in some ways.
Yeah, and I mean, we all have to do it multiple times a day, right? You log into your bank account, there's a multi-factor, you're going to get an email or a text message. So I think there's just more sort of acceptance. Yeah, it's a pain. Nobody likes doing it, but also you don't want to be that guy that got, caught in the phishing attack that is impacting the entire company, because generally people figure out who it was.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I think there's something else, that's really important these days. I think it's about creating culture, right? Kind of, we talk about security awareness, but a culture of security, and then it's everyone's responsibility. I think there's a fine line between accountability and demonizing people, right? We don't really want to create a wall of shame of people who are falling for phishing emails. It's like we need to know, right? If you've fallen, please let us know so we can solve it as quickly as possible. But I also think it's about, hey, at a certain point, right, we gotta, take this seriously at some point. So that's often a tough line for many orgs. But I think, the concept of culture and not penalizing people necessarily, at least unless it's egregious, but really open door policy of, hey, I don't know what this was, because things are so advanced now, they may not know that they've clicked on something or whatnot. So it's that pick up the phone, let someone know, at least it's for the betterment of the org. But I just forgot to add that in, because I see culture as being a key driver to just sort of, how do we need to be thinking about security and what we need, or how we present that to everybody in our organizations.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. So you talked a little bit about, small, mid-sized businesses maybe not thinking they're the target, but it's really, yeah, it's like, where's the least barrier to
Yep.
to entry, right? The low-hanging fruit. So for those organizations that maybe don't have a dedicated IT or security team, whose responsibility should cybersecurity be if it's not already?
I mean, honestly, operations, finance, ownership. Who's writing the checks, who makes the key decisions. I think an easy way to kind of approach it is really, you know, um, to quote The Officer, some big movie buff, but what would you say you do here, right? Like, what does your organization do? Who's sort of the key drivers and owners of, the data you have, or the services you deliver, or the functions that you do, because I think that helps outline clear sort of accountability and the responsibility of who's the ultimate decision maker on this stuff that needs to make that responsibility if you don't have an IT staff. And that's where, yeah, I think it commonly is, maybe it's operations leaders, because it's about the use of technology and other functions and services and people to deliver X or create widgets or what have you. But it could be an owner. But I think really that also supports culture because it starts from the top. Otherwise, it becomes a pointing game. So that's where I think I would start, is really looking at what do we do, but kind of who's the ultimate stakeholders and decision makers that would make other choices that would direct company strategy, and that's probably that person.
Yeah, and I think that's the person, if you were to ask the question, like, what would be the impact if you had a ransomware attack on your ability to conduct business, or if you lost patient data, for example,
Yep.
or had a breach? They're the ones that are going to feel the most pain because they know what, even from a financial standpoint, what their tolerance would be in the organization. Which kind of leads me to the next topic. Because I was talking to a friend recently. I know there's a lot more talk about cybersecurity insurance, right? And this is
Yep.
the notion that you get an insurance policy where you have to pay a premium, and if you do have an attack and you're doing all the right things, that your insurance company covers you, like homeowners insurance, right?
Right.
So that if somebody breaks into your house and steals stuff, you're insured. It's kind of the same idea. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, that works at a six-site med spa dermatology office, and I said, "Hey, do you guys have cybersecurity insurance?" And she said, "I have absolutely no idea." And I'm like, I hope that she just doesn't know, but they do. But in any case, I suggested you might want to talk to your owner and make sure that they have something in place. But talk to me a little bit about what's happening around cybersecurity insurance and costs, and even just the application or questionnaire to get or renew cybersecurity insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cyber insurance is, in the history of insurance, a fairly new thing, right? But it's kind of gone through some pretty rapid evolution over the last, 4 or 5 years, right? Um, Initially, when cyber insurance policies were starting to really be written by a lot of the, brokerages and insurance providers, um, it's covering a wide range of things and paying out. And unfortunately, they started to lose a lot of money. And so that's where they're having to pay, they're having to recoup that money to also pay out. So premiums started to go up. But what insurance providers are also really coming to terms with is that they can't own the liability for end user organizations by themselves. There has to be give to get. And so the requirements to satisfy or to get an affordable, or you can get a policy and probably have next to nothing, and maybe someone will write it for you and your premium will be through the roof. But to get an affordable and comprehensive policy that will cover your business, they're now requiring, before it was okay, you got to have backups. Right? Well, now then it shifted to multi-factor authentication. You must have minimum. Then it's you need to have endpoint security, more robust endpoint security, known as like endpoint detection response, right? So the next level of antivirus. Now, really, where it's getting to is you need to have a 24/7, 365 security monitoring team or outsourced service, known as a managed security service provider of some sort, or capability there watching your back. Even now, hey, we need to start looking at like zero trust fundamentals, which is an entire other animal, but it's because insurance providers have been paying out so much and they're also watching the threat landscape shift that they don't want to own the liability of paying out solely on their own. So what this means is the questionnaires and the requirements and expectations here are getting larger, more complex, oftentimes confusing and cumbersome. But insurance companies are also really holding that line in the fine print where if it's not 100% deployed, if you forgot one machine or one user and they find out, they're not going to pay your claim. And we've seen evidence of this repeatedly. Um, and this is presenting challenges, I think, for many organizations, because it's how do I afford, what level of coverage do we need? That's the other big thing too, that there's the idea of sublimits and coverage, and do I actually have enough insurance to cover my business? Kind of a personal anecdote, right? There was a fire here in Colorado several years ago that wiped out 1,000+ homes or so. And unfortunately, many people found that they did not have home insurance enough to cover the cost of a rebuild. They were only maybe 50%. So if we think about as you treat your business like you would your home, to your point, home insurance, do you have enough to weather the storm, right, of all the different things that it would take? Or is it simply going to get dried up very, very quickly? And then you're on the hook for everything after that. So there's a lot there that I'm kind of walking through, but it's that shared responsibility model that now cyber insurance is looking for. It's about ensuring that there is 100% coverage and alignment of the security capabilities requirements they will have in these questionnaires, and that organizations are simply not passing the buck along to them, and that's where these insurance premiums are coming because they're losing a lot of money, which is the honest truth. And so yeah, it's a tough situation for many businesses to start to figure out, what do I need coverage on, what do I have, what are my gaps, and then how do I go get affordable insurance that's also not going to break the bank.
Yeah, I mean, we get lots of questions about it, and it's homeowners insurance is the great analogy there because I just had to renew a homeowners insurance policy, and it is a give to get. Like the fact that I'm really close to the fire station, and I have an alarm system, and I have smoke detectors that are connected to the fire and police, and alarm systems are all connected. Like that, I get better premiums because I'm investing in things to make my home safer. I'm not just saying, oh, I don't have to do anything because I've got homeowners insurance. So it's a great kind of analogy there.
Yeah, and I think we many businesses don't think twice about having a fire suppression system. They hope you never have to use it.
Yeah.
So why do we treat data security and cybersecurity the same, right? Or why do we treat it differently? Right. And so that's why I think kind of the knowledge of is treat your business like you would your house, or various other things that you are insuring. And hey, do these need to be treated the same? And that's a risk-based decision every organization needs to come to terms with themselves. But I think going through that line of questioning and kind of comparison can almost sort of, if business is so based on technology and data now, what value do you place on that yourself in terms of what you do, or its
Yeah.
absence thereof?
Yep. No, it's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you joining us. I thought those were some really thoughtful, good answers, and hopefully folks learned a lot. If nothing else, just brings a slow person to you camping to
Yeah.
um, attract the bear. Um, so again, appreciate it, and hopefully we will have you join us on another one of these kind of expert series down the road.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Rob.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining.
Cheers.